Hi, my name is Matt Swinney, Global Creative Director with ANZA, and we're here for our next edition of the Fringe Files. What we're going to do is we're going to show you a really wonderful fringe on Madeline. There's multiple reasons on why we decide what fringe we use. We've come to the conclusion that Madeline has a squoval face. What's squoval? It's like square and oval. So basically the perfectly shaped face for any type of fringe. We're going to go with a little Bardot fringe because I think that's a little bit more on trend right now. But with her face shape, we could actually choose any style of fringe that we want to. It's really important that you examine the face shape before you do your fringe because certain fringes match certain face shapes much better. Now, we did a nice blow dry on Madeline. We used a round brush to kind of give her a little bit of a smooth effect, but we didn't want to over polish the hair and over control it. We wanted to sit a little bit more natural, so there was no setting of the sections. This way we can see where her hair lives naturally when it's dry, so we know how to take our fringe section on Madeline. So I'm going to comb her hair down here, and then we can start to see on the top of her head where it starts to break. In our first edition of the Fringe Files, Amit spoke about it too. Where that head rounds forward, it's very important because if you go further back than that, when Madeline goes to brush her hair out of her face, or if she likes to wear her hair in a little bit more of a sleek style, you'll notice, and I'm sure you've experienced this before behind the chair, this section, once you go past the round of the head, sits on top of the hair that lies underneath. And so the fringe isn't actually doing its job, which is to kind of bring focus to the best parts of the client's face, right? So if I have a client with a really beautiful mouth, I want to set that fringe around the mouth. If she has a really beautiful nose, I'm going to set that fringe around the nose. If her eyes are what needs to show, then I'm going to set that fringe a little bit closer to the eye. Because naturally, when you see it, you'll look right at the fringe, and then your eye moves down the rest of the silhouette of the haircut. All right, so I think that we're going to bring Madeline's Bardot fringe kind of bridge of nose. That way when she brushes it to the side, you'll be able to see her eyes, but also if she wants to wear it swoopy, she can do that as well. So I'm going to take a small triangular section to set my guideline. So the closer I hold the hair to Madeline's face, the stronger that fringe is going to be. The more I elevate it, the softer that fringe becomes. It's just like when you're cutting a perimeter or a bob or anything like that. Same rules apply. So I'm going to start this fringe and I'm going to take my section and I'm going to elevate it. I want to create softness in this fringe from the start. I don't want to set a heavy line. So I'll come in here. With my finger, I see where that fringe is going to fall. Now when we go in here, we're using a point cut and we're going about 1/4 of an inch or so deep, just so that we can start to create that very soft perimeter of our Bardot fringe. So then I just come in here, lightly brush it aside so I can see where it's going to start. That looks really pretty. So now my sections are going to look like this. Remember, I want to cut the hair as it lives without breaching that high point of the head. So I'm just going to take a diagonal section, elevate, same way that I did on our first section, and I'm going to over direct it across her part. The reason that we're going through and we're over directing is so that we maintain that length and start to create that really beautiful, soft, kind of like arcing Bardot fringe. Remember, we're taking it with elevation, over directing it across our part, going in with our point cut, roughly about 1/4 of an inch deep. Right here should be about our last section. And what you'll notice is that when we get to this last section on the side, this way, Madeline. You can see Madeline's hairline here. This section is not going to go wider than the side of Madeline's hairline. So here's a tip. When you guys are point cutting, you want to make sure that you point cut on the way out, not on the way in, right? So the point cut looks like this. I actually close the shear as I start to remove the shear from the section of hair. This way I ensure that I'm not going to cut my finger. All right, so we've cut our left side of the fringe. Now we're going to cut the right, and the same situation applies. We're going to take a small subsection, pick up that first section that we did, over direct it over the part. Look at my fingers are parallel to my subsection, right? So my fingers are angling towards me here, and then we're going to go in with that point cut. Make sure that we have a nice elevation so that we're soft from the beginning. And then that point cut is going to start to create that really nice, soft line for our Bordeaux fringe. Next section, over direction, point cut. So I like to rest that bottom blade on my ring finger. When I go in and I do my point cut, that gives me total control of the shear. All right, just like on the other side, we've reached now. I'm gonna turn my head this way, Madeline. We have reached the point where the section is touching the hairline on the side of the head, so we can't go any further. This will be our last section. Again, over direction. We're point cutting on the way out. We've set our guideline for a really perfect, nicely rounded, as you can see, Bordeaux fringe. Now, we want to bring that point cut just a little bit deeper after we've created that whole section. So we're going to come in here, we're going to point cut. We're going to use our comb to hold the hair out at 90. And we're going to come in and point cut about a ½ an inch into the section of hair. You don't want to go too deep when you're point cutting these fringes. If you go too deep, you're going to start to lose that perimeter line. So we're only going to go about a ½ an inch in, keep it at high elevation. This way we keep it nice and soft and really get to maximize the look of that Bordeaux fringe. All right, so we've cut our Bordeaux fringe. It's got a nice angle. You can see swoops over both eyes, still very soft, fluid with the haircut, but also the beauty of this fringe is that it's versatile. So we can take it and give a nice full deep side part with it and a nice soft swoop of the fringe that way. We can come across this way. The possibilities when you take your fringe section in the right spot are really going to be endless, and you can see just with a little brush back, we're right back into that perfect Bordeaux fringe. Extremely important, guys, when you're cutting fringe, examine the face shape, know what fringe works best. We will be continuing to make these fringe files to help aid you along in that process. Also, remember that sectioning. Never go back higher than the round point of the head here. And you also don't want to breach the side of the hairline because you don't want that fringe to be hanging over any other portion of her haircut. Thank you. We'll see you next time on the Fringe Files.